Well, good morning, folks, and welcome to Friday, January 20th, the Snow Church video for that day. I'm your host, Rev Snowflake, coming to you from beautiful downtown scenic Jacobsville, where we picked up about 3 inches of snow yesterday. Not as much as other places got. In fact, by the evening time, the National Weather Service in Negaunee Township, there up on the hill to the west of Marquette, had picked up over a foot of the fresh white stuff. So I don't want to say we got skunked because we got snow, but we just didn't get as much as some other areas. Actually, a good chunk of the eastern UP got some decent snow. All right, our live snow cam of the day had to go all the way over to Maine. Things are pretty quiet in a good chunk of the country, but Maine saved the day. And this is Wrangley, Maine. I've actually been here. I was invited by Polaris to go and demo some of their sleds. I don't know how many years ago, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Beautiful country, beautiful, beautiful country. I would really like to get back there to ride. It's kind of like the Keweenaw, but the hills are on steroids. So they're not the mountains out west, but they're not the they're bigger than the hills we have here in the Keweenaw, and more plentiful as well. And there are some lakes and a lot of hardwoods. And for those that you like to go off trail, lots of places to go off trail as well. So good news for Wrangley, Maine, getting some fresh for the weekend. All right. Now, this is actually 2-day snowfall. I wanted to show the full extent of that storm that came both Wednesday and Thursday. And you can see how the Keweenaw was not missed completely, but certainly didn't take part in the heaviest snows. Neither did a good chunk of western UP, but the eastern UP, northern Wisconsin, did very well. And there's also, Minneapolis folks know of some great riding down around here. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they're riding there. And the Iowa boys, you good old farm boys that get to stay home if you want this weekend and ride some of your trails there. Satellite, like I said, pretty quiet across the nation. Look at this. Barely a precip echo to be found. This is all very, very light. Some of it might not even be reaching the ground. I didn't want to go to New York because that's all kind of, well, there's not a whole lot of cams once you get outside of the Tug Hill Plateau. So I had to go to Wrangley, Maine, which is right here, and kind of in that green, or the northern edge of that green radar echo. The forecast then. The trend is for the next 10 days or so, no big, huge storms to impact most of the Midwest. There is one for Wednesday that could impact these areas right here. Wednesday of next week. It's a long way out in the forecast, so not the highest of faith in things, but both models are indicating it to occur are in relatively good agreement. And we are starting to draw down that main polar jet stream. So once that polar jet stream gets involved in things, confidence in the models goes up. But at any rate, here's what we're looking at. Basically, we're right on through the weekend. A few splotches of snow here and there. And then we get that storm. Here comes the Wednesday storm starting to form right about here. And watch it come up and boom. So see some pretty healthy snows. And then at the very end, we'll watch these lake effect snows kick in. It's like, well, it actually kicks in right at the very end. GFS is a little slower with this is the European. It's a little slower with the advent of the true Arctic air than the GFS is. So we'll get to take a look at that more so in the GFS. But, it's not that bad of a forecast. There's still some fresh snow to fall in the next 10 days, almost everywhere in the Midwest. And while it's not big, deep amounts, it's enough to freshen things up and, at least keep us from smiling rather than frowning. Now we'll go to the GFS. And it is a little bit further north with that system for Wednesday, but not a whole lot so. So again, here we are through the weekend. Nothing really to write home about. And then here comes the Wednesday storm, right there. And then as we get to the very end of next week, the lake effects come in. There you can see the lake effect snows coming in. And then just for poops and giggles, let's run it all the way out to 16 days. And still some more snows. So going back to 10 days, 240 hours right there. That's not a bad snowfall signature. Not real good for Wisconsin or Minnesota, but I think this is probably a little bit underdone. And we have these snows here. So an encouraging forecast. Upper air model or upper air signatures. All showing fairly favorable conditions. Let's get out to about, I don't know, Wednesday, Thursday of next week. We've got the polar vortex now over northeastern sections of Canada. We'd like it to be just a little bit further west than that, but that still is not a bad place for it to be. Some ridging trying to get going in Alaska, but it's being undercut. Pretty strong Siberian low, not over Siberia anymore, but over far eastern Siberia and the northern Pacific Ocean. So these two factors are almost exactly what we want to see. It's this thing, this little trough, this little hiccup right here. And that may just be a hiccup in the models, because like I say, it's really, this is very busy in here. And Jetstream doesn't usually like to get quite that busy with things. But, this is still a pretty decent pattern. And thus my hopes are pretty darn good that the weather will stay winter-like all the way through the end of January. Maybe not copious amounts of snow, but cold and some fresh every once in a while. All right, the 850 millibar map showing the air temperatures up about 3,000 feet or so. Again, you get these purples here, and that's marginal for lake effect snow. The closer you get to these whites, the more aggressive the lake effect snow would get. So let's put this into motion. The Keweenaw is sitting right here. So here you can see a break, and then maybe a little bit of lake effect snow for tomorrow. A little bit of a warm up, but not a melting warm up. And then perhaps again by early part of next week, a little bit of lake effect snow. And then watch, you'll start to see this area kind of swing this way. And that is when we really start getting the bitter cold in here. And with the lake wide open, as long as the atmosphere is unstable enough, we could have some horrendous lake effect snow. That's not what I'm calling for just at this point. It's a little too far out in the forecast, but it is certainly worth keeping an eye on. Well, Blue, the Marvel dog, the double doodle of double doodles, is barking at me, telling me, Dad, it's time to stop filming. Pay attention to me. So have yourself a wonderful weekend, everybody. Keep those sticks on the ice, and I'll talk to you again on Monday.